est une épopée de plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Que l'on ouvre les portes. Let the doors be open. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, l'honorable.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellin. Mr. Speaker, in Alfred Pellin, many guardian angels have made a difference during the first wave. They had to deal with new realities with courage, determination, and resilience, and this in order to support the most vulnerable people in our community. Today, I wish to highlight the local Meals on Wheels services, including the Service Bénévole d'Entraide Vimont-Auteuil, who have spent countless hours in the kitchen. Affordable catering services have been provided in order to help our seniors. Emergency food pantries have been created by Relais de Quartier Saint-Vincent-de-Paul and the Maison de la Famille Saint-François. We have 28 days to flatten the curve, and I wish to thank all the organizations in Alfred Pellin who have stood strong and who continue to support our community. You are doing amazing work, and I wish to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Bravo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Caribou, Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to deliver this statement from Williams Lake, British Columbia, my hometown and the home of the Williams Lake Stampede, the greatest show on dirt. Over the last 5 years, the Liberals have shown through their disastrous policies that they don't respect or understand rural or Western Canadians. The speech from the throne didn't address the increasing rural crime or the opioid crisis and did nothing to address the growing unity crisis grappling Western Canada. Small businesses are the backbone of our country and have been all but forgotten by this government. Communities in my riding depend on the economic benefits of major events like the Williams Lake Stampede, Billy Barker Days, the Vanderhoof Air Show, and the BC Northern Exhibition. Due to COVID, all were shut down in 2020. Because of this, businesses and great community supporters like C Plus Rodeos, Central Display, Judy Russell Dance, Blake Productions, and thousands more have all suffered incredible losses this year. And sadly, they were all left behind by this government. They deserve better. Mr. Speaker, we may be down, but in true Caribou spirit, we'll get back up, dust ourselves off, saddle up, and ride again. Yeehaw!
Honourable member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, Etobicoke North is a caring, strong community, and we are here for one another. Thank you to the tireless frontline healthcare workers of our own William Osler Health System for their life-saving work, and to Rexdale Community Health Centre for their important community health care during COVID-19. Thank you to our tremendous community organizations like Albion Neighbourhood Services that provided youth services, the Sixth Spiritual Centre Toronto that provided packed meals to families, the International Muslims Organization, and the Lions Club that provided food and essential supplies, and Trust 15 that continued inspiring and mentoring our amazing youth. Thank you to our churches, mandates, volunteers, and our wonderful families. Know I am grateful for the care, love, and the way you lift us up. The COVID-19 pandemic is not over, and it's going to take all of us working together to keep our very special community safe.
L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, 50 years ago, an organization in the St. Bruno parish funded a development project in a village in Cameroon called Minta. For 50 years, this organization of the same name invested in humanitarian projects to improve the living conditions in the poorest communities around the world. Since 1970, over 233 projects in 43 countries and 4 continents have been undertaken by Minta. However, celebrations of the 50th anniversary have been cancelled, including a solidarity walk. But no matter, we will double up Despite the constraints related to the ongoing health crisis, a magnificent work of art in the form of a planet was inaugurated in front of the St. Bruno Church on September 14th. International solidarity is extremely important, all the more so during a pandemic. We must continue to support remarkable organizations like Minta Saint Bruno, which has made Quebec and our region shine during and create lasting ties and make a difference to people throughout the world. Happy 50th anniversary to Minta.
The honourable member for Dartmouth Cole Harbour.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on the eve of their 30th anniversary to recognize Educ Alcool's great work. Taking action against excessive drinking, they started small, helping other organizations repair the damage caused by alcohol abuse. Over time, as they grew, they took on the challenge of prevention. Their slogan, La Modernisation a bien meilleur goût, and clever marketing approach has been incredibly successful, and they are renowned for their educational programs and common sense approach. Educ Alcool is a beloved and respected voice on the harms of excessive drinking and alcohol policy. This October, Educ Alcool is launching a Quebec-wide contest called En Octobre, on compte sévère, and I encourage everyone across Quebec to take part and count their drinks in October. Moderation is always in good taste. Educ Alcool deserves our recognition for making Quebecers more accountable and aware of the harm posed by excessive drinking. Thank you for all you do.
Member for Red Deer Mountain View.
In 1960, a young farm boy who had just started teaching was recruited to run for politics. At age 23, Bob Clark became the youngest elected official in the Commonwealth. He went on to serve as Minister of Youth, Minister of Education, and eventually leader of Alberta's official opposition. After politics, he served as Alberta's Ethics Commissioner, and more recently as chair of the Olds College Board of Governors. As a lifelong sports builder, particularly with the Olds Grizzly hockey team, Bob was inducted into the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame. These are but a few highlights of his storied career. In the early 70s, Bob encouraged me to become engaged in politics. As I traveled alongside Bob, I was able to observe what a politician should be: a compassionate listener and a problem solver dedicated to public service. I cherished him as a mentor and as a friend. Bob passed away on July 10th with his loving wife Norma and children Dean and Donna by his side. We will all miss him dearly.
The
Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, small and medium-sized businesses in Northern Ontario remain hard hit by COVID-19. FedNor's Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, RRF, has been a lifeline protecting over 3,300 jobs in Northern Ontario alone. On October 2nd, an extra $22.3 million was announced for FedNor, including $6 million from Community Futures Development Corporations. This is in addition to the $43.8 million that was already announced this spring. I really want to thank the Minister for all our help in supporting local jobs in Northern Ontario. Our message to local businesses is clear. We're here for you, and we'll get through this together. We're working with you to support good local jobs and help our economy come back stronger. Ces entreprises sont l'épine dorsale.
These companies are the backbone of our economy, a significant source of local jobs. We are providing small businesses with the tools they need to recover and to prosper. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Pickering Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, this month is Women's History Month, and I rise to remind the House of how much work is still needed for women's equality, and our rights still remain under threat. For example, the leader of the opposition says he got into politics to defend the rights of Canadians, yet he pleaded for the votes of social conservatives who work to remove a woman's right to choose. He supports the member from Hastings, Lennox, and Addington who compared the arguments for a woman's right to choose to the arguments in support of slavery. Compare that to our Prime Minister who appointed Canada's first gender balance and stated, quote, "It's not for a room full of predominantly male legislators to take away those rights from women." I know the leader of the opposition says he's Canada's next handyman, but he clearly doesn't understand how to build a more equitable Canada. On this side of the House, our Prime Minister, our Liberal members, our leaders, we stand up and speak out against those who seek to roll back women's rights.
The honourable member for Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Speaker. Marietta Lola Doreen Roberts. To many, Marietta was a politician, a lawyer, a judge in Ontario. She was the first woman elected as a member of provincial parliament in my riding. To me, Marietta was the next-door neighbor to my family farm in Sparta, Ontario. The relationship between the Roberts and the Martin families have extended through multiple generations. To my Aunt Marjorie, Marietta was her childhood friend and loyal confidant. Marjorie reflected upon Marietta as one of the ones devoted to her family, cultivated numerous friends, and treated individuals with fairness in her personal and professional life. For over 65 years, Marietta was my aunt, and my aunt remembered birthdays and celebrated every Christmas Eve. To me, Marietta was proof that if you're from Sparta, you can do anything. As Steve Peters, former Speaker of the Ontario Legislature, said, there must be something in the water. My heartfelt condolences are sent to the Roberts family. Marietta has left a great legacy to her community and to all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very nice.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, COVID-19 has demonstrated to Canadians that the provincial government and the Canadian government have worked exceptionally well together in protecting our healthcare system, in providing the healthcare services that Canadians expect of our governments. And, Mr. Speaker, over the last couple of years, I have tabled many petitions signed by the residents of Winnipeg North calling upon the federal government to introduce and bring forward a national pharmacare program. In the throne speech, we have seen incorporated a national throne speech where we will have a national pharmacare program from coast to coast to coast for those provinces that are willing to work with the government to make a difference and deliver what Canadians in all regions of our country want, a truly national pharmacare program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Charleswood St. James Assiniboia Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, beginning last Friday, Jewish Canadians across the country have been celebrating Sukkot. During this time, we celebrate the gathering of the harvest and commemorate 40 years of the ancient Israelites wandering the desert when they left Egypt. For 8 days, Jews will gather in a sukkah, which is a hut that represents the temporary shelters used on the way out of Egypt. It is here where meals and prayers are shared throughout Sukkot to celebrate this joyous and festive occasion. During this celebration, a bundle of different plants is waved in all different directions, known as the four kinds. These symbolize Jewish unity, demonstrating the different levels of knowledge and observance within the Jewish faith being united. Today, I wish the Jewish community across Canada celebrating Sukkot Chag Sameach.
The honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Alberta announced that it will establish the Centre of Excellence for Plastics Diversion and Recycling by 2030 as part of its plan to get Albertans back to work. The plan could lead to a possible $1.4 billion in economic opportunity and contribute to the creation of over 13,000 jobs while decreasing the impact of plastic waste. With all the Liberals' talk about the economy and the environment going hand in hand, you would think that this would be a welcome plan. But less than 24 hours later, the Liberals have made it clear they intend on getting in Alberta's way yet again by declaring plastics as toxic and banning single-use items under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. Plastic will now be considered just as toxic as other substances such as mercury and asbestos. So now, in the middle of a pandemic, workers in the plastic manufacturing industry might also find themselves out of a job. It's clear the Liberals don't have a single use for Albertans. Why don't they understand that it's their policies that are actually toxic?
The honourable member for Edmonton, Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. October 11th marks International Day of the Girl Child. It's a day to recognize girls' rights and the unique challenges girls face around the world. According to the United Nations, there are more than 1.1 billion girls under the age of 18 who are poised to become the largest generation of female leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers the world has ever seen. But there's a problem. COVID-19 hasn't just exposed inequalities girls already faced. This pandemic has made it worse. Decades of progress in gender equality will disappear before our eyes if we don't act now. To start, Canada must invest 1% of its COVID-19 response to global solutions that protect the rights of girls around the world. We must fight for gender equality abroad by promoting human rights, security, access to education, and protection of health while ensuring that women and girls have a seat at all decision-making tables.
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-les-Basques. Mr. Speaker, it's with great pride as a fan from the very beginning of the Rimouski Oceanics that I want to tell my colleagues yesterday about the selection of the star player of our club, Alexis Lafrenière. He is a #1 pick in the NHL draft. Drafted by the New York Rangers, he will, I know, electrify the crowds at Madison Square Gardens, just as he did at the Rimouski Arena when he dominated the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He's the 8th Quebecer in 50 years to be so honored, joining historic players like Mario Lemieux and Guy Lafleur. The Rimouski Oceanic has a long tradition of excellence. It's the 3rd time one of its players has been so honored after Sidney Crosby and Vincent Lecavalier. It's the pride of our region, and Alexis is the pride of a nation. Alexis Lafrenière will be a hockey legend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The list of laws broken by these Liberals and Liberal insiders gets longer by the day. News continues to break about more Liberals involved with organized crime, committing fraud, assault, and in this place, ethics laws. For years now, they've broken ethics laws, been caught, and then tried to cover it up. The WE scandal is no different. When multiple committees were dialing in on the corruption around the cabinet table, the Prime Minister shut down Parliament and locked the doors on those committees. In the middle of a pandemic, this Prime Minister put his cover-up before the needs of Canadians. Now that Parliament has resumed, it's clear their vote to block the WE documents at committee demonstrate that their intent on covering up their corruption. Canadians' confidence in public institutions continues to be degraded by this Liberal government. Canadians want truth, and they deserve answers. It's time for Liberal members to make a choice. Will they bring the truth to light, or will they be complicit in corruption and cover-ups that damage our democracy?
The Honourable Member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, now more than ever before, we have a role to play on the world stage. For the past several years, China has increased arbitrary detentions of the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority. There are reports of internment camps, forced labor, sterilizations, and other human rights abuses. These are unacceptable, and that's not all.
Repression of the Muslim Uyghur community continues. Chinese authorities are ramping up their assault on the freedoms of those living in Hong Kong. The new national security legislation is resulting in the arrest and detention of democracy rights activists. That is why Canada was the first country in the world to suspend its extradition treaty with Hong Kong. That is why we are taking a leadership role with our allies, Mr. Speaker. We remain firmly committed to the immediate release of the 2 arbitrarily detained Canadians, but that has not meant that we have not stood up to China, because Canada will always stand up for what is right.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, for 2 decades now, the government could count on the World Health Network to prevent pandemics. In 2018, the Liberal government changed its mission. It more trusted countries like China, and right now, Canada was not at all prepared for COVID. Why did the PM close our first line of defense? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Over the years, Canada has continued to play an important role, not only in Canada, but across the world, in the fight against infectious diseases. We've worked with our partners worldwide, and we're going to continue to do so. We have no lessons. Well, we also learned lessons from SARS in Toronto in 2003, and we learned from this and applied these lessons. In January, Dr. Tam had already called meetings with her counterparts in other provinces, and we're going to continue to work with experts here in Canada and abroad. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. That's not the case, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister counselled our pandemic system, and he relied on official information from the Chinese government rather than those of Canadian analysts. Canada had a pandemic alert system that was avant-garde, and this is no longer the case. Why does the Prime Minister value press releases from Beijing rather than those from Canada, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? That's simply not the case. We have extraordinary experts across Canada who give us recommendations, but we also do work in a multilateral system that recognizes the work done by our allies across the world, including at the WHO. We're going to continue to work on the best possible evidence while we protect Canadians. That's what we've done since the beginning of this pandemic, and that's what we're going to continue to do throughout it. Unlike other parties, we're going to be there to support Canadians at every stage and based on science. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prioritized information from Beijing over Canadian intelligence officials. And experts have been warning since 2018 that the government was keeping them from reporting international health situations, leaving Canadians at risk. The last warning that went out without government interference was in May of 2019. 7 months later, doctors in Wuhan began raising alarms about a pandemic. Mr. Speaker, why did the Prime Minister shut down this country's first line of defense against COVID-19?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives playing up alarmist political points to score cheap political points. That's simply not the way it worked. We worked from the beginning of January where our public health officials engaged with their counterparts, Dr. Tam engaged with their counterparts across the country to highlight the concerns and the threat of this potential virus. We had intelligence briefings through the month of January on this issue, and we continued to work based on the best advice of our top scientists and medical officials in Canada, but also top scientists and officials from around the world, including at the WHO.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, alarmist. What's alarming is the news story in the paper today that said that senior Health Canada officials said that information about health outbreaks were being dumbed down by this government. Scientists have said the government placed a higher priority on open source information from China than on information gathered by Canadian intelligence officials. Before the pandemic warning system was shut down by this Prime Minister, it was leading the world in identifying outbreaks. Why did the Prime Minister put the health of Canadians at risk when he shut down the pandemic warning system?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think all Canadians, and especially scientists across this country, will know that we will not take lessons from Conservatives when it comes to supporting science and scientists in this country. For 10 years under Stephen Harper, they slashed science budgets. They slashed and limited the abilities of scientists to do their work. So on the contrary, we invested historic amounts in supporting scientists across the country, in ensuring that science is at the forefront of decisions we take. We will continue to put forward the responsible and powerful decisions made by our science as the things that we move forward as a country on.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Senator Salma Atulajan is running to be the president of the International Parliamentary Union. Senator Atulajan would be the first Canadian. She would also be the first Muslim Canadian to be put forward by Canada for a prestigious position like this. Will the Prime Minister join me today in formally endorsing Senator Atulajan's candidacy for President of the IPU?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will take no lessons from Conservatives when it comes to gender equality or diversity. We recognize Senator Salma Atulajan's important work on human rights issues. The Minister of Foreign Affairs had a great conversation with her about her candidacy last week.
I'm going to interrupt the Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'm having a hard time hearing. I mean, there's not a lot of people with COVID, and we're doing this by virtual as well. But the noise is starting to get up, and people are more than making up for the small numbers. Now that everything's quiet, I'll sit down and I'll let the Right Honourable Prime Minister continue.
Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs had a great conversation with Senator Salma Tulajan last week about her candidacy, and we'll be speaking with her again. As it has long been the case, the government does not support candidates for roles in interparliamentary organizations like the IPU. That is for members in the House and Parliament of the world to decide, and we wish the Senator well in her campaign.
The Honourable Member for Balaye-Chambly. Thank you. Canada's relationship with its First Peoples is a nation-to-nation relationship that is the responsibility of the Prime Minister. He has to be concerned with the social issues that Indigenous peoples face, and that's where prejudice and racism comes into play. He spoke with the spouse of Ms. Joyce Echequan and with the chiefs to tackle the social issues that are the direct heritage of the shameful Indian Act and systemic racism in Canada's history. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the family of Joyce Echequan and to all the family that experienced this loss. Across the country, we were shocked by the video, and I'd like to say that the Indigenous Legion I spoke with were shocked but not surprised. This is a lived reality for all too many Indigenous peoples across our country. They face racism, and that is why on this side of the House we do recognize systemic racism, and we're going to continue to work with this community and with all communities to eliminate systemic racism. The Honourable Member for Balaye-Chambly. Obviously, we do as well, but it's not up to we're in the Parliament so that he needs to say this, but to Ms. Echequan or to the chief. Does he realize that the Quebec government contacted the community, met with the chiefs, conducted a public investigation, and is also going to look at recommendations? Does the Prime Minister realize that his condolences do not meet up to the relationship that he should have with Indigenous peoples, but Quebec is doing so? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, first, I'd like to congratulate what I believe to have heard from the Bloc leader is that there is systemic racism in Quebec. It's important to be there to fight every day against systemic racism, and I'd like to underscore that the Minister of Foreign Affairs was at Joyce's funeral yesterday, and Minister Bennett also has communicated with the community and the family. We're going to continue to fight systemic racism and to move towards reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in this country. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We're clearly in a second wave of COVID-19. People are worried. They're afraid for the future. And to give people confidence, can the Prime Minister commit today to guaranteeing that when a vaccine will be available, it will be free for everyone? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Since the onset of this pandemic, as a government, we've done everything we can to support Canadians, to reassure them in this situation, which does cause a lot of concern. We were there to help provinces with their healthcare systems. We were there to help workers, families, and small businesses, and we're going to continue to do so. In terms of the vaccine, we've established an expert committee to provide recommendations on the best way to ensure to distribute this vaccine for free in the best possible way, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to be once again very clear on this question. People are worried, they're deeply concerned, and something that would help out Canadians right now is a clear commitment, because it was unclear yesterday, so I want to ask one more time very clearly. Once a vaccine is ready, will the Prime Minister commit clearly that that vaccine will be freely available to all Canadians? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we deeply cherish our universal health care system, and that means that things like life-saving vaccines are free for Canadians. We indeed put forward a committee of independent experts to help counsel the government on the best way to ensure that vaccines are distributed fairly, equitably, and in the right priority way so that Canadians can be as safe as possible as these vaccines are discovered. I can highlight, however, the extraordinary work of our procurement minister, who has ensured that we have a great access to vaccines from around the world as they become available.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Parliamentary Budget Officer mentioned that the federal government's Innovation Superclusters program is unlikely to achieve its objectives. My mother often told me that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. The aerospace industry in Canada is declining. There are thousands of jobs now that are at risk. How does the government explain that it is crushing this Quebec flagship in full flight? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we all recognize that this pandemic is hitting several sectors harder than others. For example, tourism, aerospace and travel, and also the oil industry. We are there to help workers across the country in all industries to get through this pandemic. We did it with the CERB, we did it with the wage subsidy, but we're going to continue to work with innovative companies in the aeronautic industry to move forward and to protect them. The member for Chicoutimi-Le Our aerospace industry continues to unravel, and it is also Canada's international credibility and influence that are affected. Aerospace in Canada is Magellan in Winnipeg, Pratt & Whitney in Longueuil, and also CAE present in Begleville. Aerospace provides jobs and economic development for the regions of Quebec, not just in Montreal. So why is the Liberal government focusing all of its efforts on the supercluster strategy that is in a state of disarray? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're investing across the country to help innovative industries that will prepare for the future and for the jobs of the future. And that's why we're investing so much in aerospace. And that's why we're investing so much in these superclusters, because we have trust in the future that Canadians are building and innovating every day. We're going to continue to be there to support workers in industries across the country like we've always done, and we're going to continue to do so.
For Calgary, Nose Hill.
When the Prime Minister shut down Canada's early warning system on the pandemic, and he says that he was briefed at the end of January, he was relying on WHO data that countries around the world admit was opaque and less than transparent, to be generous, from China. Then they fumbled around for weeks talking about how masks weren't effective and that there was no human transmission of this. We were flying blind. And now, going into Thanksgiving weekend, the Prime Minister is asking people to cancel their Thanksgiving dinners because of his failure. Very simply put, will the Prime Minister apologize to Canadians for this massive failure?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives try to score cheap partisan points, we remain focused on Canadians. This is an unprecedented pandemic that hit hard on countries around the world, and we pulled together across orders of government, even mostly across party lines, to deliver for Canadians, both the health measures that would keep them protected, but also the economic supports, things like the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, things like the wage subsidy that made a huge difference in Canadians being able to be confident in their present and their future. We will continue to have Canadians' backs.
The member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
The inconvenient truth for this Prime Minister is that the fact is that it's only been since Parliament resumed, after he shuttered it, that Canadians have seen action on things like rapid tests. That's right. We still don't have answers on when they're actually going to get here, though. You know, that answer was so trite and it was so glib, because if he actually cared about Canadians, he would have access to rapid tests. He would be trying to fix things like shutting down the early warning system, and he would be doing the right thing and taking accountability for his lack of action and his failure to protect Canadians. Simple question. How many tests are Canadians going to get, rapid tests, and when?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, one point on which I vehemently disagree with the member for Nose Hill is that I believe that every single Canadian, every single parliamentarian in this place cares deeply about Canadians. No matter how much I disagree with the member from Calgary Nose Hill on a number of things, I know she cares about Canadians, and I think that she should expect that all of us care about Canadians deeply, because we have come together in this time of pandemic to deliver for Canadians. Health Canada has stepped up. Canadians have stepped up. The provinces have stepped up. And yes, the federal government continues to step up, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
When veteran Sean Bruyere dared speak truth to power, pointing out how veterans would receive less in the Liberal so-called Pension for Life scheme, he was publicly attacked by the former Minister of Veterans Affairs, who wrote, "Individuals like Sean Bruyere are stating mistruths about Pension for Life to suit their own agenda." Bruyere sued the minister for defamation, seeking $25,000 in damages. The Liberals then used the full weight of the government to defend the minister against a veteran who, it turned out, was right, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. I'm asking for the Prime Minister to justify this to Canadians.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As the member well knows, an agreement was reached in that case, and as part of that agreement, we will not be commenting on it further. But I will highlight that service delivery and support to veterans and families has been a priority since the very beginning. Since 2016, we invested nearly $10.5 billion in new money for our veterans and their families. This funding was invested in new centres of excellence on chronic pain and post-traumatic stress disorder, increased financial compensation, and more, which stands in stark contrast to the Conservative approach, including from the now Leader of the Opposition, which was to close offices, fire staff, and gut Veterans Affairs.
Honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Well, when it came to defending a case against a convicted terrorist, Omar Khadr, the Prime Minister had no problem rolling over and giving in to Khadr with a $10.5 million payday. But for those who served and defended this country like Bruyere, and let's add Admiral Mark Norman to this, after attacking their integrity and honor, the Prime Minister and his ministers spent millions in legal fees defending themselves. Since the Prime Minister couldn't kick Bruyere out of cabinet or caucus like he did to Jane, Selina, and the former AG, who all spoke truth to his power, will he at least apologize to Bruyere, and while he's at it, Admiral Norman, for the assault on their reputation?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see the extent to which Conservatives like to wrap themselves in the flag while they actually have a record of nickel and diming our veterans by cutting their services, by cutting opportunities for their families, by closing, by shuttering 9 Veterans Affairs offices right across the country at a time when veterans needed proper help. These are the things that we've worked on over the past numbers of years, investing $10.5 billion in our veterans when Conservatives did nothing for them for 10 long years.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Yesterday, Toronto police arrested a businessman who had an underground casino in his home. Police seized a machine gun and $1 million. The name of the entrepreneur is Mr. Weiwei. Curiously enough, he's a faithful and generous donor of the Liberal Party of Canada. Moreover, he donated $1,500 in 2014 and participated in a special cocktail with the Prime Minister in 2016, who he met on at least 2 occasions. My question is simple. Does the Prime Minister know Mr. Weiwei? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in our federal system, we have some of the strictest rules in terms of political donors. But the Liberal Party has gone even further, and we are only doing public fundraisers with journalists present, and perhaps the other party should do the same. They should open the doors to their fundraising events to journalists, and they should invite Canadians to know who they're collecting their funds from, rather than doing things behind doors in secret like the Bloc and the Conservatives and other parties. The honourable member for La Prairie. Well, you can learn many lessons from the Bloc. On May 16, 2016, the PM held a lucrative cocktail fundraiser with rich patrons of the Chinese community in Toronto. A few weeks later, strangely enough, the Trudeau Foundation received $1 million. And that's not all, Mr. Speaker. A few weeks later, Chinese bank Wealth One received its Canadian charter. And the same day, the PM's riding received 70% of its funding. Mr. Weiwei attended a private supper on May 16, 2016, so the Prime Minister knows him. Did he promise him anything? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. All political parties in this country follow the rules of Election Canada, and the Liberal Party has always followed the rules in terms of fundraising. But we decided to go even further than that. By fully opening up our fundraising events, we've invited the media to participate in them, and I would encourage all parties in this House to do so. And stop having secret fundraisers. And we are open to showing who our fundraisers are. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, our ally, the allies UK and Japan, have already said that Huawei can't be accepted into their 5G system. The UK has announced that there is a crack in the Huawei system, security system. But the Prime Minister prefers the status quo that undermines our security. When will the Prime Minister make a firm decision on Huawei? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, security decisions are made in an informed manner by our safety experts and not for political reasons. But in terms of policies, we've always stood up against China to bring the 2 Michaels back and to condemn the treatment of the Uyghur people. And we've always also been there to help Hong Kong. And we've always been very firm on respect for international law. And we've always recognized the values and the rights that we all have. The Leader of the Opposition.
Realize that Huawei cannot be part of their 5G future. This government promised a decision before the last election. Right. This week, Great Britain announced that it found critical weaknesses in Huawei's 5G infrastructure. Last week, it was Germany tightening restrictions on Huawei. Once again, under this Prime Minister, Canada isn't back, it's hanging back and letting all our allies get the job done. Mr. Speaker, will this Prime Minister finally rise today, get tough, and ban Huawei from Canadian 5G networks?
All Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada will always put the security of its citizens and of its infrastructures first and foremost. We have done that every step of the way. We deeply respect the work of our experts and intelligence services and are working with them to make the right decision. We will listen to their recommendations and move forward. We watch carefully what our allies are doing, and at the same time, we've consistently stood up for Canadian interests and values on the world stage, including against China.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to talk about his feminist credentials, but today he failed to support the campaign by a Canadian woman to lead the IPU. In July, when women's groups from across Canada asked the Public Safety Minister to have a public inquiry on the largest mass killing in Canadian history, he ignored them. He only gave in when the entire province of Nova Scotia revolted. It sometimes takes this Prime Minister 2 times to do the right thing. So I'll ask him again, will the Prime Minister support the candidacy of Senator Atulajan for the nonpartisan presidency of the IPU?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I will take no lessons on gender or diversity from the Conservative Party of Canada. As has long been the case, the government does not support candidates for roles in interparliamentary organizations like the IPU. That's for members in this House and parliaments of the world to decide, but we wish Senator Atulajan all the best in her candidacy.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of the horrible rampage in Nova Scotia, there were terrible warning signs with incidents of domestic violence ahead of that terrible attack. This is why dozens of women's organizations from coast to coast have asked for a public inquiry. Canadians want to know how many warning signs there were so we can avoid tragedies in the future. Will the Prime Minister commit today in this House to get that inquiry back on track for Nova Scotia and for Canadian women?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to getting to the bottom of what happened in Nova Scotia in that terrible tragedy, including looking at and exploring all the different angles related to domestic violence. But I'm very pleased to hear the Conservatives express concern on gender-based violence. We have many initiatives we're putting forward to counter gender-based violence, and we look forward to seeing their support on some very fundamental issues that they haven't been always so great on supporting in the past. So I look forward to that in the future, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, tens of thousands of business owners are hanging off a cliff, forced into deep debt, and the Liberals' flawed commercial rent assistance program has failed them and the communities they serve. Before they roll out another failed plan, will the government confirm that this time the help will be tenant-driven, set to the same loss and business standards as the wage subsidy, and backdated, so that those who were left out by the Liberals last time can get the help they so desperately need to keep afloat this time?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning of the pandemic, we promised to be there for Canadians, and we were. We supported all Canadians with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Then we moved forward to support workers and small businesses with the wage subsidy. We also created the Canada Emergency Business Account, but we saw that Canadians, businesses and workers were still struggling. So we worked with the provinces to create the Commercial Rent Assistance Program, which has helped over 120,000 small businesses across the country. But we recognize that there are better ways to do that, and that is why we are working very hard on being able to announce shortly more support for businesses through their fixed costs in an easier way than that.
The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the Veterans Minister seems to be okay telling 45,000 veterans in this country that they can wait another 2.5 years to see their disability applications completed. Last week, the PBO provided a plan to get this done in 1 year and make sure this never happens again to our veterans. Instead of focusing on helping them, the Liberals spent over $200,000 in legal fees defending a Liberal minister and attacking a veteran. When will this government stand up for veterans and make sure that they're spending the money on the people who stood up to protect us in this country?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, service delivery and support to veterans and their families has always been our priority. Since 2016, we've invested nearly $10.5 billion in new money for our veterans and their families. This funding was invested in new centres of excellence on chronic pain and post-traumatic stress disorder, increased financial compensation, and more. We are the government who recognized the sacred covenant we owe to our veterans, and that is why we have improved and invested in supports for them. There's still much more to do, but we have helped our veterans, and we will continue to.
Honorable député de Saint-Laurent.
The honourable member for Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Saint-Laurent and across Quebec, the pandemic has shown the importance of having affordable housing and feeling at home. These are difficult times for Quebecers. We have made a great deal of progress since we launched the National Housing Strategy, and yesterday we announced an agreement with Quebec on significant investments in social and community housing. Can the Prime Minister tell us what this agreement means for Quebec families?
Le Très Honorable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I thank the member for Saint-Laurent for this important question and for her hard work in her riding. We are proud of having signed a bilateral agreement as part of the National Housing Strategy with Quebec. This 10-year agreement of $3.7 billion will help to protect and renew as well as broaden social housing in Quebec. We continue to work with the provinces and territories, including Quebec, to put an end to chronic homelessness. It's our duty to do better for people who need housing, and we will do so across the country.
Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
On Monday, I asked the government about ties between senior Liberals like Joe Pescasolido and Raymond Chan and individuals charged in a gangland shooting with the Chinese Communist Party. Now we've learned that the architect of a heavily armed illegal casino operation in Markham has twice had FaceTime with this Prime Minister, and surprise, he also has ties to the CCP. Canadians deserve to know, is the Prime Minister's proximity to the Chinese Communist Party elites in Canada affecting his ability to protect Canadian interests?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have always followed all the rules around fundraising and will continue to, but we actually went above and beyond that in making sure that all of our fundraisers are done in public spaces, and we invite the media to it and publish the lists of people who attended. We encourage the Conservative Party of Canada to do exactly the same. When will they stop raising money in secret and instead be open with their fundraisers, invite the media to attend their fundraisers, and actually demonstrate that they can have confidence in Canadians as they ask Canadians to have confidence in them?
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, the Prime Minister should hope that Canadians don't judge him by the company that he keeps, and he's just the latest Liberal with worrisome ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Chan, Pescasolido, Barton, McCollum, these latest bad actors operating their illegal casino in Markham, just like the ones arrested this weekend in BC, are helping arrest protesters in Hong Kong. But don't worry, they've donated millions of dollars to the Trudeau Foundation. Why should Canadians trust this defective Liberal government, complete with its Made in China sticker?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I've addressed that question, but again it points out that the Conservatives are focused on trying to score political points at a time where Canadians expect people to come together and work for them in this COVID crisis. We will continue to focus on supporting Canadians in this second wave. We will be there for families, for workers, for small businesses. We will be there to support industries across this country as they're dealing with this unprecedented pandemic. We made a commitment to Canadians that we'd have their backs, and that's exactly what we're doing. So regardless of what the Conservatives want to focus on, we will stay focused on Canadians in this pandemic.
I just want to remind the honourable members that the way it works is you ask a question and you get a response, and you can't just keep asking questions. It makes it difficult for everyone to hear the response, and the future questions, I'm sure we'll get those assigned as we go on. The honourable member for Carleton.
Who would bet their own money on gateway casinos? Well, it turns out nobody. Of course, the company was just downgraded to junk status, and its parent company lost 95% of its value on the stock market before being delisted altogether. In fact, financial experts in Toronto say the company vastly overvalues its assets. But there's someone who would invest other people's money in it. The casino just got the jackpot of $200 million from this government. Wow. With the financial genius over there who invested $200 million of our tax dollars in this failing casino firm, please stand up.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
While the Conservatives play silly political games, we recognize the extraordinary situation that Canadians are facing. We're a few days away from Thanksgiving, and people are worried about whether or not they're going to see their loved ones, how they're going to make it through this pandemic, whether or not we're going to be able to gather for Christmas. And as a country and as a government, we remain focused on that. We're working with partners across the country, premiers and provinces and territories, and continue to work with all orders of government as we deliver for Canadians through this pandemic. Let the Conservatives play games. We're focused on Canadians.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Speaking of games, you've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to swindle a naive Prime Minister of $200 million of other people's money. Because that's exactly what Gateway Casinos has just done. They can't get money from anyone. In fact, for 10 years, their owner tried to sell the company, but nobody would buy. Well, we have new job losses of 2,000 people in the energy sector out west, 500 out east, 1 million Canadians without paychecks since the pandemic. Why is he throwing away our money in this jackpot for casino insiders?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize that Canadians across the country are hurting because of this pandemic. We created many different mechanisms to support them, whether it was the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the wage subsidy, or the LEAF program, which is the large employers' enterprise funding. We've actually ensured that that money is delivered independently to organizations that qualify for it, and it is a long-term, it is a loan rather than any sort of grant of money. These are things that we've put to make sure that our economy comes roaring back. We will stay focused on the pandemic and on supporting Canadians through this pandemic.
Honourable député de Beauport. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago, the federal government launched its naval shipbuilding strategy to replace outdated icebreakers and shut Davie out completely. As a result, 10 years later, they've just woken up. The icebreakers are good for the scrap heap, and by snubbing the largest shipyard in the country, they haven't been able to replace the icebreakers. Now the government's turning abroad to buy used ships when they could have built a brand new one in Levis. Will the government admit that it would have been simpler to award Davie its fair share of the contracts? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the shipbuilding strategy was developed years ago, and as a government, we carved out space for Davie within that strategy. Even if there were difficulties at Davie in the past, we acknowledge the quality of work and workers, the innovation that they deliver. It has always been exceptional. We are happy to include Davie in our national strategy to build ships for the Coast Guard. We will continue to work with the excellent workers in this industry across the country. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. A song by Dalida comes to mind here. I won't sing it, but I'll spare your ears. The lack of planning and a childish stubbornness by the government to ignore Davie means that for the second time in the past few weeks, the government's invested abroad instead of on a used ship instead of investing here. In fact, the government wants to buy an icebreaker with a 10 to 15-year lifespan instead of buying a new one. They could have bought one here, a new one for almost the same. When will the government take action to support the economy here, to invest here at home for workers and companies here? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, since the outset, we have been investing in workers here. We have a strategy. Davie has built ships. We have seen a great deal of work created across the country. We are very proud of the work done in the shipbuilding industry. We will continue to seek out opportunities to invest and create more jobs for our shipbuilding industries, for ferries, national defense, and the Coast Guard. We will continue to invest.
Liberals are taking yet another step toward annihilating the gas and oil industry here in Canada. The Prime Minister wants to designate plastic as a toxic substance. In the plastic manufacturing industry, currently there are 5,000 jobs in Alberta, 23,000 jobs in Quebec, and over 40,000 jobs in Ontario. As Canada transitions away from single-use plastics, while 2 million people have already lost their job in this country, what is the Prime Minister's plan with regards to mitigating job loss?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know firsthand the impact of harmful plastics in our environment, and that's why we committed to moving forward in 2021 to ban harmful single-use plastics. That's what Canadians expect of this government. That's what we're going to do. Unfortunately, the Conservatives continue to play political games and don't think that it's important to protect the environment. We have made very clear that none of these bans on single-use plastics will affect any sort of medical supplies, which obviously are essential during this pandemic, and we will continue to have a thriving industrial response as we move forward on plastics.
Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
While the Liberals play political games, jobs are being lost. Canadians are being impacted. They're having a hard time being able to pay their bills and take care of their families. We're talking about 2 million jobs that have already been lost in this country. Now we're talking about tens of thousands more jobs. My question is very simple. In the midst of an economic crisis, when will the Prime Minister put forward a plan to protect Canadian workers?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Conservatives say climate change is a problem, but they want to make it free to pollute and then hope for the best. They say they want to grow the economy and support the middle class, but they ran their campaign on a promise to cut billions of dollars in projects that are improving the lives of Canadians. They say they're against plastic pollution, but don't want to take any meaningful action to actually address it. We know that to ensure jobs for the future, ensure a better future for our kids, we need to take action now in ways that to support industries and move forward in the right way. That's exactly what this government is doing. Unfortunately, the Conservatives don't believe in that.
Honourable member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the loved ones and friends of victims of Flight PS 752 gathered here in Ottawa and elsewhere across the country. 9 months have passed since the incident, and the victims' loved ones are calling for justice for the 55 Canadians and 30 permanent residents who lost their lives. Will the government listen to families and impose Magnitsky sanctions on those responsible? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I had the sad duty of sitting down with the people who lost loved ones in this tragedy, and as I said at that time, we will always be there to support them, to seek justice for their loved ones as well as compensation. Immediate action must be taken to ensure an investigation so that families receive compensation. Iran has shared the report from the flight recorder, which contains information that we are aware of, but we need to have answers, and we will continue to work along those lines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
De Longueuil, Charlemagne.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 continues to wreak havoc at home. With 80,000 confirmed cases and 6,000 deaths to date, millions of Quebecers are now in red zones. I'm happy that the government has chosen to adopt the federal app, COVID Alert. Can the Prime Minister update this House on the app and tell us how the tool can help Quebecers to better protect themselves? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Longueuil-Charlemagne for her question and for her hard work. We have been there since the outset to protect Quebecers, since the start of the pandemic. COVID Alert is available in Quebec, and I would invite everyone to download it. 3 million people are using it across Canada. The app is safe and respects people's privacy. Download it for your loved ones, for you. Do it today. The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Iran is one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and increasingly so. The imprisonment of human rights lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh, the execution of wrestler Navid Afkari, the brutal murder of Canadian Zara Kazemi in 2003, and the 55 Canadians killed last January. When will this government realize that the regime doesn't respond to engagement, and when will it list the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization, something that this House of Commons called for over 2 years ago and something the Prime Minister voted for?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our hearts go out not just to the 55 Canadians lost in PS 752, but also the 138 in total people who are heading to Canadian soil to connect with family, loved ones, and friends. We know there is much more to do, which is why we are continuing to work with the international community to hold Iran to account. We expect Iran to provide an answer on important questions such as why the missiles were launched in the first place and why the airspace was still open. We will continue to work with partners to ensure transparency, accountability, and justice, including reparations to the families.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, what Canadians need during a pandemic are honest and clear answers. Last week, I asked the Minister of Employment to say why there's some 164 workers in Mégantic-L'Érable whose employer looked at work sharing were deprived of their salary for 5 months. We've got generalized answers, but nothing concise. Today, I'll ask the Prime Minister, is it normal for Canadians who chose to go back to work instead of taking the CERB be penalized by not receiving what their government owes them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the start of the pandemic, we have been there for Canadians with the CERB, with the wage subsidy, with targeted measures to help people in need. I don't know the details of the situation my colleague opposite refers to, but I commit to looking into it and to coming back with an answer in the future. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, my question is for the Prime Minister. What message are we sending Canadians who want to work when we don't answer them, like as was the case last week? What message are we sending to the companies in Thetford and elsewhere who didn't lay off people, didn't fire them? The message they're hearing is stay home. That's not good for their health. It's not good for the economy, Mr. Speaker, and it's bad for the country. When will the Prime Minister provide a clear, precise answer to all of these workers who are not receiving half of their salary because they trusted his call to go back to work? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The CERB, the pay wage subsidy, the measures for our seniors and for students have all been rolled out to help Canadians during the pandemic, to help workers, to help companies. We will continue to help them during the second wave. We will be there to help companies. One of the best ways to protect the economy, to help it recover, is to take action now. So we're asking everyone to do their share. We're going to continue to do ours to support workers.
For Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, all Canadians deserve safe and affordable housing, especially during a global pandemic. This is a major priority for my riding of Ottawa South. Flu season is upon us, and we have urgent needs. We need affordable housing. Can the Prime Minister tell this House what the government is doing to help as many Canadians as possible to have a home? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for Ottawa South for his question and for his hard work. This crisis has showed that our economic recovery needs to include more affordable housing. That's why we're proud to announce a $1 billion investment to meet the needs for affordable housing for vulnerable Canadians. This initiative will create some 3,000 affordable housing units, permanent units across the country, and will help us to meet our objective to eliminate chronic homelessness. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. Following another night of intensive bombing in Stepanakert, the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh, we really wonder how the federal government could sell military technology to Turkey that's now being used against civil populations in Armenia. That runs counter to our obligations under the Treaty on Arms Trade, the UN treaty, as was the case with Saudi Arabia. Now the Minister of Global Affairs is going to Europe. We don't want photo ops. People are dying. What steps are going to be taken to help restore a peaceful situation in Nagorno-Karabakh? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We are aware of allegations that Canadian technology has allegedly been used in this situation. The Minister immediately sought clarification. We have suspended export permanent permits to Turkey in order to assess the situation more carefully. We are asking for measures to be taken immediately to stabilize the situation on the ground. We want to see a peaceful, negotiated solution to the conflict.
C'est tout le temps qu'on a pour les questions.
That's all the time we have.
But before continuing, and I have everyone's attention, if I can maybe just indulge and remind everyone that it is your responsibility as MPs to wear the headsets that are provided by the House. That's something that everyone appreciates here in the House, but especially the translators or les gens qui font la traduction.
The interpreters, it's very important for their health as well.
As well as your colleagues here in the House. And as well, on that note, please make sure that you're in a place, whether you're asking a question or anticipate receiving a question, to be well connected. Make sure that that connection is strong and works well. Again, think of your colleagues in the House, online, and the interpreters who are working so diligently in the back rooms there to make sure we get the message across. The other thing too is someone yelled time. I appreciate the help and they're trying to help me, but I do have a timer here just so that everyone knows when they're asking or answering a question. If they see the speaker just kind of slowly leaning forward, the 5 seconds has started, and by the time he stands up or she stands up, the 5 seconds are done. And while I'm at it, we have only so many allowed in the chamber. and we try to keep it to a certain number in order to make sure that COVID-19 doesn't spread any more than it has amongst MPs. And we've had an overflow. Some of the MPs have been gone up into the gallery. I just want to encourage them not to shout or scream or clap hands. It's hard enough to keep track of what's going on here on the floor, let alone up in the gallery, and we don't have the guards to throw them out. So we'd appreciate it if they kept that to a minimum. And now we'll continue to... we have a point of order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, just on a point of order on that matter, I know that there was a bit of concern in regards to members, MPs being on the government side in the public gallery, and there might have been comments that were coming from that section. And I'm wondering if it might be best that if there is an overflow, if they could, members might want to consider going to their respective sides, or as you have suggested, to be quiet in the public gallery as it allows better focus from the chamber floor.
Thank you for that. And just to comment on that, if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me, I noticed a couple of whips comment, or one whip in particular commenting to his people that they're trying to keep them quiet, and it seemed to have worked. So there is cooperation on both sides, and I want to thank everyone for that.